listening to the Not Your Average Culture podcast, where we have candid conversations about personal growth, business, and creativity. Because, let's be honest, creative or not, life can get messy, especially if you are a creative entrepreneur. But you don't have to go at it alone. There's a whole community and culture around the lifestyle of creatives. So here on this podcast, I'm making the space to have open conversations with a wide range of dynamic people about how to successfully maintain your business, keep your sanity, while owning your authenticity and staying inspired along this journey. I'm your host, Chardonnay. Let's get to it. Hello, and welcome back to the Not Your Average Culture podcast. For those who might be tuning into the podcast for the first time, the theme for this season is creative flow. And I talk all about that in the intro episode to this season. So if you're interested, be sure to go check out that episode because it ties into today's conversation and gives more background and context to the chat I'm having today. But essentially, I'm on a personal journey of figuring out my work-life balance and sharing my thoughts and reflections on the creative process and people who pursue creative career paths because I've experienced creative burnout. And I also realized that we are in an era of the creator economy, especially since we have transitioned to more remote work settings and digital transactions. But it's an interesting dynamic for people that work in film, entertainment, content creation, design. It's kind of a fine line between those industries. Like they're almost the same in some ways, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But this year was an interesting year for me because, there was the writer's strike that affects the film and television projects and also just the economy in general. I don't know if you all have noticed, but there have been lots of companies making layoffs, org restructures, and oftentimes, as quiet as it's kept, the budget that tends to get cut first are the arts. I've seen this happen in so many instances, especially when I was younger. Usually the first programs and things that tend to get cut are the arts or creative teams. So it's definitely had an impact on me. As a creative, when you experience burnout or there is a shift in a project and work comes to a halt, or maybe there is an overwhelming increase in work, what do you do during those times? How do you express the value of your work and what it takes to produce creative projects and how it has an impact on business? For me, I personally continue to work on who I am as a person outside of the work I do. I indulge in self-care, reconnect with friends and family, and take the time to revisit past projects I put on pause. So one of the things I did this year was work on my branding for this podcast, and I was able to collaborate with Justerica, and I hired her to help me revamp my logo, my podcast cover art, and website. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about creative collaboration, inspiration, branding and visual strategy, and also how we are taking care of ourselves as creative entrepreneurs and sharing the value we bring to businesses and brands, and the importance of being able to operate and show up as your best self. And most importantly, how you simply being you, how it has an impact into turning your creative gifts into a business. We're talking about so much, y'all, in this conversation, and I'm just really excited to share it with you all. So without further ado, let's jump into this episode. How are you doing?
I am doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Okay, so since this episode will be released around the holidays, what is your favorite holiday and time of the year and why?
I don't really have like a favorite holiday. I think that my birthday is my favorite time of the year. I think that would trump like a holiday for me. And the reason why is because for some reason, like I could have like the worst year ever, but it's like something about like my birthday that like pushes me to like go harder. Like I always have like a great month in business. I'm always like the happiest. I feel so inspired to create a lot of things. So that would be like number one for me, like my favorite time of the year. But if I absolutely had to choose a holiday, I would say definitely Thanksgiving or Christmas. I really love my family. So like whenever we do like get together, like it's always a great time. And I'm the one that's like what games can we play? Like, well, how can we like include everybody? Like, how can we make it fun? So I enjoy doing that. Anytime that I can like get my family or friends together and we all just have like a good time and it's like we just laughing like till our stomachs hurt, like that's like all I need.
That's what's up. I felt the same way when you say your birthday because I do something big or just take the time to like acknowledge myself for my birthday. So I can relate to that. And then Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday because I love to eat and love to spend time with my family. So I can relate to both of those. What's the most exciting project you've ever worked on?
My most exciting project. That is a great question. Let's go with recent stuff. If we're going like with the recent, because I can't think of anything right off the top of my head, but like I recently just traveled to the Bahamas for 2 days for a client. She hired me to do content for her birthday trip. And that was like super fun. I had never been to the Bahamas. I had never even been out of the country before. So that was my first time like using my passport because I travel all the time, all year round, but it's really just been within like the States. So I was really excited to get out of the country this time to do some work. The weather was beautiful. It didn't rain. People were like so nice. And on top of that, like we got a lot of like great content. So like now I'm like, ooh, I can't wait till she posts this so I can like come behind her and like post it too because I'm just thirsty because all the stuff is just like so good. So I think that was my favorite project recently, but I have a lot of other ones. I'm my favorite client. So a lot of the things that like I do, I pretty much like test on myself first. I'm like, if I can do it for me, then I know that I can like do it for my clients. So I've had like a lot of fun projects myself. I'm not sure if you've seen, but like I do like these remixes to promote like my services because I know how to sing a little bit. So I always have so much fun like remixing a song and like creating a video to that. It's just something about being able to have this idea in the middle of the night at 3:00 in the morning and then weeks later, I'm executing that and like seeing it come to life and just seeing how much people are like taking that on. It's just like, dang, like if I never like stepped out on faith and like did this, like I wouldn't have seen like all those reactions. Or, when I do things like that, when I like push myself to do things that, came to my mind, I always get like so fulfilled because I have like other people or like other creatives. I was like, that was so good. Or, oh, like this inspired me to do this. Or now I have like close family and friends that's like, I'm going to record this song or I want to remix this. I'm just like, I love that. Like, I just love that. Like, I have something like I have like an additional gift that I've been able to like incorporate into my business or incorporate into like my marketing that just fuels and like inspires like other people. Like, that's so cool to see.
I love that. And speaking of gifts, I think like that's the perfect segue into the interview and just getting into it. Can you let the guests know like who you are and what it is that you do? Because like I mentioned earlier, like I've had the pleasure to work with you on just revamping the branding and my podcast cover. And so, yeah, can you just explain and share with everybody who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, so my name is Justerica Angelique. I am a full-time entrepreneur. I hesitated because I'm playing around with this word. I'm like, I should start calling myself like a contentpreneur because that's what I be doing like on a day-to-day at this point. So I love creating content. I love branding. I love all things business and just art and just anything that involves creating or producing something, production, and just seeing things, come to life from an idea. Like that is me. So I am really big on like the visual piece of business, but also like very, very like hardcore on like the strategy behind like the visual, because I feel like don't post no content if you're not looking for ways to monetize those things and to make money online. I am a believer of our gifts make room for us, and I feel like our gifts brings us money. So whatever ideas we have and, the things that we create, like they should be bringing money to us, especially if they're our gifts as God gave us those. But I am a web designer, a photographer. I have a photo studio in Naperville, Illinois, and I help my clients brand their businesses. I help them with content creation, and yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That is a lot. I feel like you just say it so humbly. Like, first of all, like you said, you do those remixes. Like you can sing, you can sing. I've heard you sing and hit a note or two with some of the that you created. Like you said, when you are an entrepreneur or a creative entrepreneur, it's like we wear these different hats. So it's kind of hard to like label ourselves and put a name on all the different, avenues and things that we offer and do. And so like I mentioned to you when I first asked you to come on to the podcast, is like, I'm in this space of just like building community, connecting with other creatives, and most importantly, like getting to a place of creative flow, or like the other young girls be saying, get to like my soft life era as a creative entrepreneur, if that's a thing. But I'm wondering for you, with like all the different hats and things that you do, how have you personally, or what have you personally put in place to help you somewhat achieve like a work-life balance? And what things have helped you achieve like creative flow?
I live off of my calendar. I feel like if it's not on my calendar, it's not going to happen. So that's number one. I try to stay as organized as possible with my business, with family stuff. I make time for all the things that I know that I need to do and also the things that I want to do. So I live by my calendar. I create lists on a day-to-day, so that way I'm making sure I'm trying to get as much things as done as I can. All the time it does not work that way because we're human, and I do like tend to like crash out sometimes when I know that I've been like on go because there's like so many things to do. I feel like I don't get enough sleep sometimes because of how hard I have to work and like just recharge my creative brain, because a part of like what I do, I say for design work pretty much, but that takes like a good chunk of my business. So I constantly find myself having to like recharge my creative brain because I'm creating everything from scratch. Like nobody's project looks the same as the last. So it's like, ooh, if I can't necessarily think of something on this day, like I make sure that I like give myself some time to sit and like recharge and reboot, so that way I can come back to the project with like a fresh eye and get things done. So I'm just make sure I make time for like self-care things. I tried doing this thing on Wednesdays. I've been slipping, I ain't gonna lie. But I tried to do this thing for like on Wednesdays where I like spend that day to just rest if I want to. Go get my hair and my nails done. Go get massages. I'm really, really, really big on massages. Like I'm going to get one today at 3:00. But, you know, like I just try to make sure that I'm like penciling in those things that are important to me that make me feel great at the end of the day. So that way I can come back and like be like my best self, because I'm also a mom. So I have to make sure that I'm not letting the stress of my business stress me out too much by the time I pick my son up from school, because he doesn't deserve that. Like he doesn't know like what I have to deal with, like, you know, on a day-to-day. So I try to make sure that I'm not passing energies, even to my fiance. Like if somebody like stressed me out, like I don't give that energy on to him. I don't pass it on to my son. Like I just make sure that like I take some time, I take my space, I pray if I need to, I take a nap if I need to. I'm a big napper. So like if I feel like, ooh, like my brain be hurting, like I just be strategizing and creating so much that like my head just starts hurting, and I'm just like, I just need to take a break. So I think a part of like that work-life balance, or just balance overall, is like really like listening to your body and like paying attention to like the things that you know you need to get done. Because sometimes I can like look at my list and it's like, okay, these are like top priorities. Like I need to get these things done. Like I need to make sure that like I'm focused in on these things. So I try to work, you know, backwards and say like, okay, if I know that I need to get these things done on this Monday, that means I need to probably try to get enough rest on Sunday night, so that way I can wake up energized and get those things done. So it's not like a pop-up of like, oh my God, I got to get these things done. It's like I knew that they were coming. So I tried my best to like prepare myself for like everything that I need to do, because I feel like that's when I show up my best, when I'm prepared, when I have a full understanding of everything. What else? I definitely pray a lot. I said that already. And like, I'm just not afraid to communicate like if and like when I need help. So I've had like a few assistants during my entrepreneurial career, but the one that I have now has just been like working out the best. I'm not gonna lie, shout out to Kayla. And just knowing when and like how to delegate. That's something that like I've been struggling with for a long time, because, you know, being like a solopreneur, like you're just so used to doing everything like by yourself. And I'm just like, I don't know if I can trust somebody else to like do this for my client like as well as I would. So I had to like get myself out of that, because I'm like, as my business is continuing to grow, like I'm realizing that I can't be in two places at once. I can't do two things at once. I can't do everything by myself. And in order to grow and like really scale the way that I need my business to, like I need more people around me that I can train to think like me. And that's what I wasn't paying attention to in the beginning when I was hiring help. I wasn't training enough people to think like me, so that way I could feel comfortable enough to delegate.
Before I'm going to interrupt you, because you did so many different things that I kind of want to touch on and just like talk more about it and elaborate on it. One, I think the biggest thing that I have enjoyed about working with you is your level of transparency and vulnerability. And we're going to get to that later on in the conversation. But the part that I want to speak to now is you talked about setting aside that time for you to creatively recharge. And I think as creatives, like you said earlier, like sometimes an idea might come to you at 3 o'clock in the morning or in the most random moments, like if you're driving somewhere or in the shower, and people don't understand that when it comes to like someone like yourself, when you're designing stuff. And so I'm wondering for you, like, what would you say is like the biggest misconception people have about being a creative entrepreneur and the design process?
I think people think that we sit at our computers all day, every day. I think that people think that we sit at our computers all day, every day. I think that people think that like, okay, as long as I've given you all the content that you've requested, like you can just go ahead and make it happen. And it's like, no, that's not how it happens. You know, sometimes we may need to take a look at Pinterest or just wait for ideas to come to us or, you know, do some research until like something like sparks. Or, you know, sometimes it does happen where I can just like look at something. Like as I'm shooting now, it's so crazy that like when I'm shooting with my branding clients, I'm shooting, but I'm also like designing their websites in my head. So it's just like, I'm already knowing like how I'm getting ready to like use this picture and turn it into a graphic and design like your whole website. Like it's crazy. Like my brain just, but there's just like so many other steps before you can actually like sit down and to create something or to design something, because like your mental has to be there. Like I feel like you produce your best work when you feel good. So that's why it's so important for me to make sure that I'm always like at my best mentally, because I know that like if I wake up and I'm having a bad day, I may not be as eager and as ready to like sit down and like sit in front of my computer for hours because I just don't feel like it. Like I just don't feel good. And I feel like it's so important to take a look at, you know, how you feel mentally. And I think that has been like a blessing in my business because I'm so like, I am so vulnerable and I am so open and transparent. And I feel like that helps me a lot because if I'm running behind on a project, like I want you to know I wasn't just fooling around, but like I had a day and life was life then. And I want you to know that you're still a priority of mine and you're still on my list and I'm still thinking of you. And I just don't want clients to ever feel like, oh, well, somebody else is being prioritized over me or whatever the assumptions are.
And people are like, you should be at your desk. And it's like, no, I'm taking a break from my computer so I can recharge.
And I used to be like so like afraid to like open up about that because I'm like, as I started my business, I'm like, people don't care about this stuff. They just want their work done. But I feel like because I am so passionate about what I do, I feel like it was just so important for me to just start opening up. And I feel like once I did, my clients started giving me more grace because I was more open, because some clients just wanted to know, like, I don't care what you're doing. I just wanted to know, like, I just wanted to hear from you because I would go ghost. Like, I would be so overwhelmed that, like, I just would not say anything. And I'm like, I can't keep doing that because, and what turned my mind around about this was one client said, I don't care if it takes you however long. I just want to hear from you. I just need touch points. I just want to know that, like, you still breathing and you still alive. And, you know, like, and I'm like, when she said that, she was like, yeah, I don't care when you started. I don't care how much you're going to charge me. I just need to know, like, I just need the communication piece. And that's where I was struggling because I was so overwhelmed. And I'm just like, well, for me, I feel like this is how I was thinking before. I'm like, if I communicate with you and like nothing is still done, I feel like a failure. But if I feel like when I communicate with you and I have your updates ready, I feel more great about that. But the client doesn't care about that. They just want to know like the update, what's going on, what's the status. And like once I had a client like explain that to me, I'm like, okay, it's okay to still communicate even when I don't have anything ready, because they appreciate the communication more rather than just not saying anything and they not knowing that you're going through whatever you're going through creatively for them to understand. And it's also important that I explain that to my clients because especially my newer clients, if this is my first time like working with someone, I just had this experience, but this is not the first time that this has happened to me. I created something that I absolutely loved, but like she didn't like it. So it wasn't in with what she saw in her head. But I'm like, dang, this is a bomb. Like, and she was like, yeah, it's nice, but it's just not what I envisioned. And, you know, in those moments, I have to like reassure that client because in their mind, they're thinking, well, if you didn't get it right the first time around, then I don't know that I can trust that you'll be able to get it right the second time around. And so having experiences like that, I'm just like, okay, this is our first time working together. So if you can communicate with me what you don't like, what you do like, that is letting me know how to go back to the drawing board to redesign for you, so that way we can get you something that you like. Because I don't just design something and just be like, here, this is what you get. Like, no, give me your feedback. You're not going to hurt my feelings if you tell me that you don't like it, because this is what I'm designed to do. I'm built for this. This is what I do on the day. I quit my job to do this.
Exactly.
So I need you to tell me like what you need. And so I feel like when you have those open and honest conversations, and they'd be like, oh, okay. Because with that client, she was like, oh, well, thank you for saying that, because I was almost feeling like maybe we couldn't have worked together because I didn't know if you were going to like be able to produce something that I like. And it's like, no, like I go through this is called the revision stage. We're revising until we get something that we like. It's okay. Like, and then I hate when people say, oh, well, this isn't something like what you're presenting to me is not like something that I've seen on your Instagram page. And it's like, you don't know how many rounds of revisions we had to go through just to get to the final product. And when I have to explain that to some, because everybody doesn't understand that. And I'm just like, you don't know how long we worked on this.
Yeah.
All the back and forth, emails, the phone calls, like, until we get it right. It takes some time.
And that's the biggest part of the creative process. That's another reason I want to sit down and talk to you, because it's like when you are creative and you work with other creatives, there's this big gap between people who are not creatives and they come to as clients and they see the work, they finish project. And because we live in this like Instagram time where everybody think like, oh, it should just be, I give you everything and it's done. It's like, no, it's a process, exactly like what you said. And I think that you articulated that so well. And even just with me working with you, do you mind if I actually read a little bit of the email that you shared out with your clients about when you've experienced creative burnout? Because I feel like your communication was just so well. And sometimes I feel like that's the biggest thing that other creatives struggle with. They're doing all the things, the administrative things, the creative things. And then on top of that, it's that piece of customer service. And I think that that's the biggest disconnect between when people work with like solopreneurs and then agencies. When you work with an agency, they have people that are in place that can do that customer service and that touch point and give you the updates all the time. But when you're a solopreneur or freelancer or even a content creator, it can be hard to like even find the words to articulate, like, this is where I'm at in my process. I'm still doing things on your project. And also, even like what you said, like the creative process, it goes through many rounds of reiterations. And I feel like you did it so well and articulated it so beautifully in the email. And I'm like, yes, like this is the person that I know I would want to continue to work with, because you just expressed that so beautifully. So I'm going to take a minute to read a little bit. Yeah. So she was like, good evening, everyone. I pray this email finds you well. I just wanted to send this over and be completely transparent as possible to let you all know that what I've been dealing with. It has been such a joy working with you all, a pleasure to welcome my new clients, meeting a lot of you in person, and traveling to you to get content done. But honestly, within the past several months, I've been experiencing creative burnout, which has caused so many delays in my projects, affecting turnaround times and business relationships. As of recently, my creative battery is drained because I'm pushing myself so hard to get these projects done. During those times, my communication has slacked because I will get overwhelmed with sometimes 50 plus emails a day, tons of projects to do, plus everything else I'm dealing with being a mommy. I've come up with a project calendar attached below to show you all where you all are, and I'll continue to send updates regularly to show the progress of everything. And so I'm going to stop there. You went into more detail, but like the takeaway that I loved about that, it was like you acknowledged like, you know, where you're at in your creative things. You were vulnerable and transparent to share where you were at. And then also you gave people a timeline. And so that was something else I wanted to talk about, because I think a lot of creatives or creative entrepreneurs, they feel like there's no space for vulnerability and transparency in business. And I felt like you demonstrated that in what you said and even in this email that you wrote. And I was just wondering, like the response that you got from people, do you feel like it was more positive, negative? Like what was the outcome? And even after sending that out, do you feel like there is space for vulnerability in business?
So after sending that email out, I was feeling like so many like different mixed emotions because for one, when I had to like send that out, I was just like I just felt like so stuck and like congested at the fact that I had to like send that out and for one to like so many people. So sending that, if you can imagine, I'm just like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to keep all these people. I don't know if they're gonna leave me. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. But I sent it and I prayed and I said, God, it is in your hands because you know my heart. That's all I kept thinking to myself. Like, you know my heart. Like, you know that I'm trying the best that I can, but I feel like it has gotten to a point where like I just couldn't keep going without saying anything because I had never done this before. Like I had never like done something like this big. For me, that was so big to like send that to like so many people at once. And I tried my best to like explain everything in detail so that way I left no room for like any confusion for anybody. So my response is like I got a lot of like, you know, I got a lot of people that were like so proud of me. Like the people that were like, okay, like, yeah, like, you know, thank you for opening up. Thank you for being vulnerable. I wonder if I can just go look up the responses that I was getting just to kind of like be more. What was the subject line of that email?
It was important updates regarding your project.
We can just go back here because this was a very important time in my business. It was so bittersweet.
And it's like, and I got it because it's like, as you're growing your business, you might go through a moment where you're asking for the clients, but then when you get the clients, it's like, wow, not only do you have to create for these new clients that you're onboarding, but then you also have to hire people to help you keep up with the capacity of all the things that are coming in. So I understood right away when you sent it, and I'm like, this is the communication that I think a lot of creatives struggle to say, but I felt like I said, I feel like you expressed it so elegantly.
So I have one client that says, thank you so much for letting us know. Take care of yourself and know that you're truly appreciated. I totally get it. I've been there. Know that you are in my prayers for strength, peace, and balance and help. Let's get into some other ones. I had a lot more positive ones than like negative. So I haven't gotten to any negative ones yet, but we have I'm so sorry to hear that. Thanks for this update. I'll be praying with you. I have another one that says, I totally understand. I pray that God continues to bless your gift, mindset, craft, and that you find a mini you and give you peace and comfort during this time. I got a couple of clients that were just in like a phase where they just needed like more clarity because they were like expecting like some things like right away. So we got a couple of those. So I make sure to email those back. I have I'm so sorry you're having a rough time. I pray that you are able to find an assistant. Thank you so much for being transparent with us. You're greatly appreciated. Thank you for your transparency. I have actually began working with the VA and assign her to graphics since I have not heard anything from my last revision. So somebody actually was like letting me know, like, thank you for being transparent. But by the time you sent this email, like I've already found somebody else to take care of like the graphics. So I ended up just giving her credit. So she wasn't a lost client. So this email pretty much had included like a lot of clients whose stuff was like already pending. But I wanted to make sure to include all the new clients that I was working on because their name were like put on the calendar too for the calendar that I sent out. So I just wanted to make sure that like everybody like knew where they were at on my calendar and when I was going to get to them because I didn't want to draw any more concern with like any more delays. So with the new clients, there was more concern because they were like, oh, well, you're already behind. So like, where am I going to fit in? Like, are you sure that you're going to be able to get to me on this date that you're saying on the calendar? So I had to kind of like reassure like all of those people. So I had done a lot of those tough conversations. Yeah, but pretty much everybody was positive about it. I did lose a client during this time because she just wasn't rocking with me. I mean, after this email, and that was okay because I was just really feeling good that like so many people were just thankful that I was transparent and I got so many people that were like praying with me and just rooting for me and just saying like, you know, I've been there, just a lot of people that could understand. So this was a tough time in business, but there was something else that happened. I didn't send an email about this because it didn't affect everybody, but I lost footage because one of my hard drives crashed. This was several months after this because this was in January of this year, but then my hard drive crashed. I'm like, dang, I got to send another hard email. And then I lost like a couple more clients at that point. But during that time, like I was going through like a season where it was just kind of like, like I'm in the season of if I'm losing anybody and I'm being the most honest and the most transparent, then that just means that they just weren't for me.
Sorry to interrupt you. And I think that is the highlight of entrepreneurship, is like you get to choose what clients you want to work with. It shows you what traits to look for in the type of people you want to work with. And while there are some challenges, like you said, like hard drive failures or that phase when you have an uptick in clients and projects and just like balancing all of that, like that is the con. But I think the pro is you're not stuck. Like in a corporate setting, you're not stuck with just like a group of people that you like. The projects will continuously come for years or years or months and months, however you choose to work in an organization. But the highlight of entrepreneurship is, you can tell like which ones will be your clients and that you will enjoy the process of working on projects with them. What would you say, like, what initially made you decide to open up your own creative studio?
So how it all started, I mean, to be honest, this is not something that I even thought or like dreamed of that I'd be doing. I have a bachelor's degree in fashion business. So my very first business was actually an online boutique. But all the things that I do today, like I was kind of like teaching myself or had somewhat of a knowledge in when I started that boutique. So I was able to do my own photo shoot, my own website. I did all of my branding. And how the creative studio birth is when people saw that I did all the branding for my boutique, I had people that were like, oh, like, who did this for you? And I'm like, I did. And then I got like a group of people that were like, oh, well, can I pay you to do this for me? Or can I pay you to show me or teach me how to do what you did, like for your business? And so I got so much demand in some services that I never even thought that I was going to even offer or provide. And I'm just okay.
So you're self-taught.
Yeah. So a lot of what I do is like self-taught. I did take some photography classes in college and a little bit in high school. And a lot of like what I do, like I just self-taught myself, especially like design and just, I had no business mentor. Like I had nobody saying like, do this or do that. Like this is all just trial and error. And the only mentor that I had was my mentor for Facebook and Instagram ads. I took a program that taught me how to do that because once I kind of like mastered like my organic marketing and I was like making more money than I was in like my 9 to 5, I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing a little bit. But I'm like, I need to reach more people. So that's when I reached out to her and like took that program. But other than that, like,
that's what's up.
I was trying to be a boss in fashion. Like I just wanted to have my online boutique and run with that.
That's what's up. And I think that like your story and sharing that's beautiful in itself because it's like, you're self-taught and you still making 6 figures. Like it wasn't necessarily like a blueprint. You were just going with something that you've seen the demand for, people seeing what you were doing for yourself. And speaking back to what you said earlier, like yourself, you're your favorite client because a lot of people see the things that you personally do for yourself. And then from there, it births other things that you can learn and develop and bring into your business. So this leads into my other question of like, what general advice or resources can you share with people that can be useful for someone interested in creating their own creative space, design agency, or just getting into business for the very first time for themselves? What resources do you think you can share with them?
Resources. What kind of resources? Are you looking for more so like tips?
Tips, resources, maybe books that you've read that was super impactful, or even if you remember the names of the programs or the classes that you took that you found that were super helpful in helping you just develop skills in your business.
Okay, so let's start from the bottom. So definitely whatever it is that you are interested in, like I've been always interested like in photography. Never thought that I'll be a photographer, but I was just using that skill set because I just really genuinely like taking pictures of myself. I would say, whatever it is that you are interested in or whatever you have like a skill set in, like always be a student, like always learn. So for me, even though like I took like some photography classes in high school, I'm like, there's still something more that like I want to learn. So I just remember going to college and taking some classes for like lighting. So I was like majoring in photography. And then after like some time going through the semester and I took like some classes and I'm like, ooh, like I feel like this was all that I needed. It was like a lighting class. And I'm like, okay, that was that. And I dropped the whole major. I'm like, I don't even need to do that no more. So I just picked up fashion at that point. So that would be the first thing. Make sure that you are educating yourself, investing money or time into the things that like, that you want to get better at. Take classes or courses if you need to. Like, nowadays, I feel like to be a creative entrepreneur, like you don't definitely have to go to college for some of these things. There was definitely a point in time where I was like in college and I was begging my mom, like, can I please drop out? Because I feel like I was learning so much more online from people that was actually like walking the paths that like I wanted to walk, that were like already successful in like what I was trying to do at the time, which was an online boutique owner. So I remember following this one girl, and I can't remember her name, and I haven't seen any more of her content since I purchased like that ebook from 7 years ago. But I feel like finding somebody that could actually like mentor you in what you want to do, that's already like in the shoes that you want to fill, that's already successful. I feel like that's the best person to learn from. I feel like college is like, for people that actually need it, like a doctor or a lawyer, like they need those credentials before they go operating on somebody or like standing in front of the courtroom to, you know, hold you down. Like,
Yeah.
but for everybody else, I feel like these are just gifts that we have, and we just have to perfect them and learn how to like run the business along with perfecting our creativity and our craft and the gift that we have, so that way we can, you know, be successful business owners. I already mentioned Laurel's class. I always shout her out because she has definitely like helped that skill set with running ads has definitely helped my business grow, where I was making like I remember making, when I was working my 9 to 5, like I was only bringing in between like $3,000 to $4,000 a month with that job. And with my business, I was making anywhere between like $4,000 and $6,000. So I'm like, oh, I'm making more. I'm matching some months or even making more money than I am in my 9 to 5. And so
Laurel? Who is Laurel?
her name is Laurel Lane. You'll find her on Instagram. She's a Facebook ads expert. Yeah. So if anybody want to take her program or course, she has like 2 things. She has like a full-on course, which is the one, not course, a full-on program, which is the one that I enrolled into some years ago. But now she's doing this thing where you can kind of get like immediate access to a Facebook ads bootcamp to kind of like start you off. And then if after you feel good about that and you want to enroll into the program, it's a really great mentorship, because like she actually like will sit on the call with you and like have you share your screen and you can ask all the questions that you have. So that definitely helped me scale my brand to now I'm at the point where I don't run ads, but I'm still hitting my goals monthly. But it was the groundwork that I did before that allowed me to just build that brand awareness, because that's what the ads did for me. It built my brand awareness. It got people on my mailing list. I have definitely gained clients from using Facebook ads. So that was definitely like a game changer for me. There's a book that I remember reading. I'm not really a big book reader. I'm like a big like online like article reader. I read like a lot of stuff online. So I'm always like reading something. It's just not actual like physical books. What else? Like that's all that I can like really think of right now. But
No, you say like you used Facebook ads in the beginning and you no longer use them now, because the reason why I used it was for brand awareness. But what would you say would be equivalent to Facebook ads now, or now that you've achieved brand awareness, what do you feel like your next like milestone or goal for the business is for you? Like what would that be? Because I know that there are some people who may be listening to this where it's like, okay, how do I get people to know like this is the creative thing that I do? But then there are some folks who are at your level. It's like, all right, once you achieve the brand awareness, then it's like, okay, what space are you in and what is the next goal, you know?
yeah. So personally, like my next goal is learning more. Like it's been some time that I've actually like dabbled in the Facebook and Instagram ads, which I would never like give that up, because it's like something that's marketing for you 24/7 without you having to stress about putting a piece of content up every day. Because I don't post every day. I'm not active online a lot unless I'm like really promoting something like super, super heavy. But I know like I knew back then that like me doing the ads was like helping like my brand awareness, and it definitely helped me like grow my business and help me like make sales. So like now like my approach with it is like I have that brand awareness, like people know who I am. So now it's just all about using that, whether it's organic marketing or paid advertisement, using like what I know now to find more people like the ones that I've already worked with, and like trying to scale my business in a way where I am not like overworking myself. So now I'm thinking about, I have a good chunk of people now that like I actually service, like I offer like a done for you service. But I know like a lot of my burnout comes from working so much in my business, where now it's like, okay, what can I teach? What digital product can I offer? And then once I kind of like think about those things, then it's like, okay, well, I can just run ads So when people like see my stuff at night, and if they're a person like me where they're thinking about all these ideas at 3 o'clock in the morning, my ebook pops up, and now that's passive income for me, and that my business is still growing and scaling without me having to do so much work. So that's like my next step in my business right now, is trying to find or create, I would say, creating those things or those products that I know that my audience needs. So that way I can go back, hit the market, start creating content around that. I love creating organic content first. This is something that I always do. Before I start running like any ads, I make sure that like whatever I posted online first organically like worked and it got traction and people are interested in it. And then I can use that same post or that same reel and actually use that as an ad because I already know that it worked. So that's my strategy or my plan next.
Nice. And then the last thing I kind of want to touch on before we close out the podcast is, where do you find your inspiration, and like what would you say kind of fuels you or helps you get through like your creative ruts, or when you experience creative burnout? Like, what do you feel like is your go-to for inspiration and just refueling yourself outside of the massages and the self-care breaks and that nature?
Definitely putting myself back into like those creative spaces. So like sometimes it's like normal for us to be like, okay, I want to be off social media right now so that way I can give myself some time and a break. But for me to get back re-inspired, those are like where my people are, or those are where like my peers are that do the same things that I'm doing. So I always like to use Instagram or TikTok or Pinterest or whatever I see online to see like what other creatives are doing. And I just take that, I remix it, and I make it my own. And I say like, how can I put a twist on this? Or how can I make this better? Or how can I like take like a certain element that they may have used, but like create something like completely like different. So inspiration can come from anywhere. Like I get inspired a lot too, like when I travel and I just see like beautiful aesthetics or like scenery and things like that. And so like whatever I see that I may pick up on, I'm jotting it down, or I'm taking a mental note, or I'm taking a picture so I can use it for reference later. So that way I don't forget what I was thinking about or what I got inspired by. And then I just kind of go from there. But inspiration literally come from like anywhere. Like I get inspired by songs too. Like I'm a big visionary. So sometimes I can even like hear a song and I'd be like, ooh, like I can create a graphic and use this as like the background music. And like, I just feel like it'll work. Like, I don't know, like I get inspired by like so much. There's not really like one specific thing that like I run to often, besides like Instagram is like my number one, like me like running to something. Like if I'm like, okay, I need something to like inspire me today, like I'm going to Instagram. But on a day-to-day, like anything can inspire me. I keep my eyes open to just receive whatever, you know, can inspire me.
What's up? So a few last pop questions. What's one thing you think everyone should experience in their lifetime?
I think everybody should experience a certain level of peace with financial freedom. And I say that because since I've gotten to where I am within my business, I have like a really like burning desire to like help like others be able to like reach this level of freedom by using a gift that they have and like monetizing it. So like with my close family and friends, like I'm always like pouring into them, or like anybody that I have that may hire me for like strategy. Like I'm always like making sure and I'm getting down to the root of like, what is it that you truly enjoy doing? Like, what do you really like to do? Like, what would you do every day for free? Like, if nobody pays you to do it, like, those are the, like, our passions that we have and, like, the gifts that we have. And so me being able to wake up and experience that, like I said, I'll quit my job to do what I love to do. And it's just been, like, an amazing feeling being able to, like, set my own schedule or, like, work on my own terms or set guidelines within my business. Like, I've definitely have created like those boundaries so that way I can have peace. So sometimes that may mean firing a client, or sometimes that may mean not taking on certain clients if I can see like the red flags like in the beginning, because I'm thinking about my peace. I'm not thinking about the money because the money gonna come. So I'm just like, if I can have my peace of mind without this person stress me out, I would much rather have that and get paid from the people that appreciate me, my time, my creativeness, and all the things that follow. But I feel like having that peace and that financial freedom comes from a person like really investing their time and their energy with trying to figure out a way that they can like monetize the things that they actually love. Because when we're doing the things that make us happy, that's where we have our peace. And if we have money, sometimes, I mean, nowadays it just be seeming like if we have enough or more than enough money, like that solves some problems for us in this crazy world. And money doesn't solve all problems, but it does allow you to have and to live like a lifestyle that you want for yourself.
That's what's up. And if you can put it into one word, what would you say that you live for? Like, what would be that one thing that just like fuels you in one word?
I would have to piggyback off of what I just said. Like, I live to just have peace because I feel like me being peaceful and happy, like that ignites everything else after that. Like when I'm peaceful and when I'm happy, like that's when I'm most excited to like promote something and to make some money or to create something, or that's when I'm most, prepared to take on like motherhood and to get back into mommy mode after a long day, or to like be around my family and for them to like enjoy and remember like those like special moments. I feel like everything that makes me happy starts with like me being peaceful and just having God just like mellow me out so that way I can just show up as the best me to produce everywhere else, that I need to be.
I love that. So yeah, that wraps up and concludes our episode. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share, or just like how can people connect with you if they want to reach out and get some of the services that you offer?
Yes, so I can be reached on Instagram at Justerica Angelique. My website is justericaangelique.com if you guys are interested in booking any of my services and working with me. I do have Facebook too, and then I have my business Instagram page. It's Justerica Angelique Creative Studio. And my last Instagram page that I have is called Remix the Content. This is a program that I released this year, basically teaching other creatives and entrepreneurs how to use their content to make money online. So if you are interested in that, check me out there too.
Nice. So that concludes this episode. We touched on so many talking points, and the one thing that came to mind was this creative online. Her name is Danya Taylor. I love her work and someday hope to have her as a guest on the podcast. But one thing that came to mind as I was replaying this episode and just kind of jotting down my notes and takeaways from this conversation, there's this specific post that came up where Danya said, she mentioned that another creator decided to steal her content idea, not even a day after she put hers up, no recognition, nothing. It may not seem like a big deal, but in the creative field, ideas equal currency. And I think it's so evident even in this conversation I had with Justerica talking about creativity and the process of bringing an idea and a concept to life, like how you take an idea and make it real. It's such like ambiguous and interesting space because I think the biggest challenge is there's no real blueprint to measure this. So oftentimes creatives have to be their own business. We have to constantly self-advocate to share why our creativity adds value and how the importance of showing up as your most authentic self, how that brings in business and clients. And something that became clear to me in our conversation was she is basically her own best client. She is her own walking billboard. And a lot of how people found her was just by her simply showing up and doing the things that she was interested in, and other people wanted to hire her to do the same. And as a creative entrepreneur, it's important to make sure you are showing up as you and sharing your ideas, your process, and things you are doing so the people looking for you can find you. Creativity is one of those things that doesn't have a blueprint and for measuring and documenting the creative process. So in some cases in other fields, it's very black and white. And I'm going to give you all an example. If you go to a restaurant and you want a burger, you pick from the menu of options that they are selling and you have the food. If you don't like something about the burger, you let them know how they can fix it or make it taste better. And most of the time they can fix it and they can give you something else and do it within a certain time frame, because we all know and are aware of how long it takes to cook something. But when it comes to creatives, if you want something custom, this is a whole new idea you are giving birth to in some cases. So it's important when building your business or brand to figure out how long it's going to take to make whatever service you offer, figuring out how to communicate the creative process so people are aware, and the time that goes into creating whatever it is you are making. I know this is a challenge I have personally experienced in my journey as a creative entrepreneur, and it's not until talking about it or having models or examples of others who might have experienced a similar situation until I had the words to describe it or figure out how to work through it. So that's why I enjoy having these open, honest, and real conversations about navigating life as a creative entrepreneur and talking about real topics such as creative burnout, building a personal brand, and just the journey and the process and behind the scenes that go into it. This is kind of one of those things that you can't necessarily show, but through these conversations, you can tell a little bit about the why and what's going on and give people insight into the process. So if you found value in this episode in any way, shape, or form, maybe it sparked an idea or inspiration, be sure to share it with a friend or consider contributing to the podcast. Your contributions go toward improving the audio experience of this show. Thank you for tuning in. I have so many more exciting conversations coming up within this season, so be sure to stay tuned. Peace, love, and everything in between. I'm out.